Hyphen, it's great to be with you, man. I can't wait to share the booth with you this year, and I can't wait for the season to get going as well.
I am so excited. I mean, I have to ask you, at what point are you going to get sick of the Ken Griffey Jr., me striking him out, my debut story?
Well,
We talking like a weekend or a couple months? You going to give me some leash or what?
I will try to bring it up at every possible moment. You know that. And I will act like
Thank you.
I've never heard this story before, and neither has any of the audience. Like, hey,
I appreciate
Ivan,
that.
didn't you strike out King Griffey Jr.?
If it gets to a point where I start getting destroyed on social media, then we have issues. Or if you start getting destroyed actually on social media just for that, stop bringing that story up. We're done. Move on. But hey, listen, man, big season. I can't wait, man. I'm very grateful to be able to share the booth with you. But let's get right into it, right? The Seattle Mariners. This is the time of year where we can make some bold statements and predictions. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. All right, we talk about the AL West a lot, and you feel like it's three teams. When it's the Astros, the Texas Rangers, the Seattle Mariners. When you look at all the projections, they're all kind of very similar. But which team, out of the Rangers and the Astros, which team scares you the most?
The projections, whether you're looking at Pacoda or Fangraphs or what have you, it is amazing. They're all so tightly clustered in terms of what the industry thinks this division will shake out as. And it's so close that I don't think anybody would be shocked with any potential outcome with the three of them. The team between the two Texas teams that scares me the most right now would be the Rangers. And it's funny, like the Mariners are all in on pitching, right? And the Rangers are all in on hitting. Like if you combine the Mariners and the Rangers, you'd have like the true super team. Although the Dodgers might take exception to that. But you know what I mean? The Rangers we saw 2 years ago, they bashed their way into the playoffs and they continued all the way to the World Series. And they made some pretty unique history of going from World Series champions to not making the playoffs last year. It's hard to ever count out the Astros. I mean, they've won 8 consecutive full season division titles. But as you know, Hyphen, it's such a different Astros team this year. They're without 3 absolute franchise pillars. Kyle Tucker is gone. Ryan Presley is gone. Bregman is gone. This is a team that has always had the ability to reload. But, last year they had their lowest full season winning percentage since 2016. Verlander's gone as well, for whatever that's worth at his age right now. So I think if the Rangers, especially if they're able to get a healthy season from DeGrom, which I understand is a pretty massive if, and they're already down a couple of rotation arms to go into the season because of injury, the Rangers still, with what they have offensively, and you kind of feel like the offense that was so down last year that you feel like they can't have that many guys be that ineffective offensively again this year. They're the team that does scare me a little bit more than the Astros right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a couple of years ago, everyone, you said they bashed their way into the playoffs, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, the pitching." Well, guess what? They won a World Series, and that's what kind of worries me a little bit because people right now are saying, "Oh, look, without DeGrom, if they're going to slow play him in regards to the way they're going to spread it out throughout the season, Evaldi's a risk as well. Do they have enough rotation?" But man, I'm with you. I don't see those guys having the same down year offensively, especially with some of the injuries. Guys are now healthy in that lineup. All right. Now, look, the Mariners, we all know, have to get off to a good start. The cliche is you can't win a World Series in April, but you can lose it. All right. So what player, and I'm going to say outside of Julio, what player in this lineup do the Mariners need to get off to a great start, and why is that?
Yeah, I think when I've given that some thought, I don't know if there's a real definitive answer there. When you go outside of Julio, there are, I would like to see, I'm excited to see the potential of a full season of Julio and Randy and what that can be. Yeah. And, Arozarena got off to a really poor start last year with the Rays and was better with the Mariners. He certainly got on base quite a bit with the Mariners. And so he is a guy that you feel like you can pencil in for a 2020 season. He's going for his 5th consecutive 2020 season. It's just him and Jose Ramirez who have done it the last 4 years. Pretty impressive stuff in that regard. Yeah. But he is somebody that I think is just a really good complementary player when you look at kind of the star power in a lineup. If Julio is a true aircraft carrier, if that's what his potential is, Randy's kind of that great second man right there. And I do think it's worth noting as well, Hyphen, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, like the Mariners last year, they did get off to a good start, right? And
It's true.
they had a 10-game lead in the division. And then unfortunately, I mean, they literally set history for how quickly they lost a double-digit division lead. I mean, like Vamoose, it was gone in about a month.
Yeah.
You know, the Astros were bad, then they got red hot, the Mariners got ice cold. So I do agree with you. Every team wants to get up to a great start, but it is funny, man. It's you can lose it in 162 games in 6 months, as you know better than I do. Like you can lose it at any point, and so it will be important to get off to a good start, certainly, but to find a way to sustain that as well.
You know, and the reason you're right too. You midway through the first month, I'm like, man, this team is killing it, and then it evaporated quick. I think Randy Arozarena, for more of an energy standpoint in regards to like him, how he affects players around him, and if he's got that high energy, I feel like everyone around him feeds off that, just like Julio. But hey, speaking of Julio's, you're talking 2020s. Is Julio capable this year for a 30-30 season? What do you got? I mean, what was he, 24, 30 something last year, home runs? I mean, surely, right? I mean, what are we looking like here with Julio? What do you think? Is he going to not grab as many bags this year? Is he going to stay dynamic? What do you got?
Yes, I mean, you go back 2 years ago, right, and he became one of the youngest players ever to join the 30-30 club. So in some ways, it's been there, done that for Julio. But you're right. Last year, now he missed some time with injury, but it was a 2020 season, so he's had 3 straight 2020 campaigns, which is obviously very impressive. I mean, I'm so torn, and maybe you feel the same way when talking about Julio, because if you look at any one of his seasons so far, right, age 21, age 22, age 23 season, there are literal thousands of players who've put on a big league uniform who have never or will never have even his worst season so far. I mean, when you think about that, right?
Great point.
And
Man.
and they can't even, not only have they not had it, they can't even dream of having a season like that. And yet, for a variety of reasons, whether it be the hype of him as a prospect coming up, obviously the massive extension that he signed his rookie year, kind of just his presence, the fact that he's kind of been a little bit of I don't want to say a face of baseball, but he has been put out there, right? Certainly by the Mariners, but also by the league. Home run derby performances have helped with that. All-Star game appearances, getting mic'd up in the All-Star game has helped with that. Like, there are all these things, all these factors where, like, this Julio aura has really grown, and in a lot of ways for a good reason. And yet, everybody wants more.
Yeah.
The fans want more. The Mariners want more. And to be frank, I'm sure Julio wants more.
For sure. I think the hard thing for me, and just speaking of the 30-30, is the fact that he was like hovering in the teens. I guarantee this played on his mind too. He was hovering in the teens in home runs till like late in the year. And then you're still able to get what, 20, what was he, 24 last year? So I think that kind of like, because you had a good 4 month span of a situation where it's like, he's looking around at his peers and they're all, crushing home runs. But look, obviously very capable of it. I'm curious if he's going to run as much. I'm hoping he is. But all right, moving on here, because we're going to get to Logan Gilbert very soon here. But who is the one player, you've been down to spring training the last couple of weeks, who's that one player we're not talking about enough that can make an impact on this team?
Well, I'll tell you one guy that I think we went from, like, Mariners fans and the club, the organization in general, went from ecstatic to, oh boy, what's going on? And because of that, you lose sight of what you felt like when you first acquired that player, and that's Jorge Polanco. Like, the Mariners were over the moon when they acquired Jorge Polanco. Justin Hollander told us that they had spent years and literally over 100 phone calls to the Twins trying to acquire Jorge Polanco, and they felt like he was really kind of the missing piece in that lineup. And then what happened last year? Obviously, it did not go well. Offseason knee surgery rather. They are kind of slow playing him through spring, getting that knee strong again. If Polanco can be 80%, 90% of what he was in his last year or two with the Twins and have that kind of production, I mean, that is enormous for this team. Enormous. But you kind of forget about it because we haven't seen it, right? We haven't seen it as Mariners fans and Mariners broadcasters, but the Twins people have seen it, and the Mariners could really use Jorge getting back to some high version of what he was prior to coming to Seattle.
Yeah, you're right, man. I remember a year ago, or even a little bit more than a year ago. I remember watching him in the playoffs. To go, man, that guy, like, he's dynamic. Like, this is a playoff with the playoff team with the Twins a couple years ago, and it wasn't just a big moment. You could just tell there was little elements to him. It's like, oh man, he's a difference maker outside of just that one big swing. But now I'm with you, man. If that's a good one. It's someone who we've barely spoken about Jorge Polanco, maybe because he was a late acquisition, or maybe because we're just trying to let him get his feet under him, or whatever it may be. But now that's a good one, man. I'm hoping he can get back to that Twins form for sure. All right, okay, crystal ball time. Seattle Mariners win the AL West. Right, we look back at 2025 when we're all discussing what it was that got them to the playoffs. Now, outside of the rotation, what's that one factor for this team that will separate them from the other teams in the AL West?
Julio. Like, it's Julio. Look at the Royals last year. Like, were the Royals a remarkable team? No, they pitched really well, like the Mariners pitched really well, and they had a superstar who played like an MVP. Yeah. Bobby Witt Jr. put up a 10-win season, which is absurd. He may never do that again. That's like, no one would project a player to have a 10-win season like Bobby Witt had. People can be upset about the lack of activity the Mariners had during the offseason, and I understand that. But the bottom line is, if you have an aircraft carrier play like an absolute superstar and an MVP, it's amazing what that can do to lift the rest of the boats in that lineup. And I'll add to it, the Mariners have, in my opinion, substantially better complementary parts to Julio than the Royals have to Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah,
they're good. They're good hitters in that Royals lineup, but I mean the Mariners lineup, like you look at the top 4 or 5, and you're like, okay, that's legit, man. When you have your top dog play like a top 3 or 5 MVP finisher, like, it's amazing when that does to a season.
It's such a good point. I remember watching the Royals versus the Orioles in that first playoff series. I'm looking around, and you start going a little deeper into, like, some of the year numbers for guys around Bobby Witt Jr. Even like Vinny Pasquantino essentially had, for the most part, a down year, and he's like hitting right around him, as opposed to watching these other playoff teams last year like Soto, Judge, and some of the supporters around that. But no, you're right, man. It's a great point, and I'm just hoping we walk away from 2025 and Julio's everything that we dream he can be. And again, from a national standpoint as well. All right, that was Eyes on the Mariners, brought to you by King Lasig. Go to kinglasig.com, or you can click the link below.